exploiting what the computer means for art. Okay. But let me say a couple of things not related to that, just to kick it off, which is that, like most visual artists, I'm really concerned with colour and form. That's really what visual art is about. And there are all kinds of excuses about what you do to deal with colour and form. So some people, for example, paint portraits, and the portrait gives some constraints about where you might put certain colours and what kind of forms you might have, but really it's about colour and form. And in the early part of the 20th century, there was this movement of which I'm a part, which became known as the constructivist movement, and later there was the minimalists and so on. And all of these people concerned to centre their attention on colour and form alone almost, to confront us with those very matters, and not to disguise them or confuse them with other things. So my work is in that tradition, and I've always been concerned with that. I started as a painter, then I discovered the computer, and I was also interested in two other things. One I was already interested in before the computer, and the other I became interested in about the same time that I discovered the computer, which was in the late 1960s. So there's two other things. I've mentioned colour and form, and the two other things are time and interaction. So let's just mention time to start with. So adding time to colour and form, you have something like abstract film. And so I'm also in the abstract film tradition. And abstract film, it also goes back to the same sort of time in the early part of the 20th century. In Moscow, there was a very big debate going on about film. Should film derive from theatre or painting? In Hollywood, there was no such debate. It derived from theatre. And you might say Hollywood won. Although if you look at modern film, there's more and more trend towards seeing the, if you like, the abstract and the painterly in film, as well as the theatre. In any case, I was interested in film in the context of adding time to painting. And then the computer had lots of things about it that were important, but it seemed to me it opened up new possibilities. It was like people who only could paint in tempera discovering oil painting. It was like only more, so bigger than that. You know, it changed everything. It enabled new things. It was like it's like inventing bronze. It's like, you know, having some other new thing to play with, some other new medium to explore. And so the question was, and the question I posed in the early part of my career, I'm now talking very specifically because I said this in public in 1970, what is the implications for art practice of the invention of the computer? And it's nothing to do with technology. It's all to do with the conceptual underpinning that the computer brings, the new understanding of life that we have because of computation, because of computers. And one of those things is interaction. The computer, because it works very fast, can actually control behaviours. So, and you do it all the time. I mean, in fact, although fortunately in many ways we're not aware of it, but when we're driving our cars and we put on the brake, we kind of imagine we're pushing a lever which pushes another lever which presses some pads against the wheel, which is not true anymore. What we're really doing is giving an instruction to a computer when we press that brake. And the computer is acting on the basis of that instruction to put some pads, pressures on the brake discs, on the wheels, and so on. So the computer is controlling behaviours, it's controlling our car, and in fact it's also true with the steering, even more frightening. When you move the steering wheel, you're not actually turning the wheels. You're actually giving instructions to a computer to do stuff. It does that. So you're interacting with a computer when you drive. And so that's an important part of life. So therefore it's important for artists, because artists deal with all of these important things about life. and try to explore them. So what is this interaction and so on? So interaction became another thing. So behind all that there's an aesthetic, which is behind, it's obvious in all of this work, which is a non-decorative aesthetic. Okay, an aesthetic where you don't add things decoratively, you kind of minimise them in order to come face to face in the sharpest possible way with kind of what really matters. And the idea of being minimal is, if you like, to go to the heart of it. That's the point of being minimal, going to the absolute heart of what the issues are. So if colour is the matter that you're concerned with, then to go straight to the heart and just have colour. Okay. So some people would say that my work is very much in a colourist tradition. It's to do with those people talk about Mark Rothko and Barnett Newman and so on, whose work dealt with nothing much else. So, what do you see here? Well, maybe this is an example that's perhaps a good one to show the centre of it. There are works which are in that room, which are, if you like, kind of domestic scale works, which can be shown in galleries, they can be hung in living rooms, they can be in offices and so on. And then there are more architectural scale or public scale works, such as the works, or part of the work upstairs. You've seen that. I'll mention something about that in a minute, just to add to what Josh has probably already told you. Well, it works like this. But the principles are the same. And in this work, this is a work of the kind that I've described. It is generative and it is interactive. Generative, what does that mean? It means that the images that you see are produced as you see them. There's no recorded images, there's no stored images, there's no movie, there's no library of pictures or anything like that. There's no library of colours even. The colours are selected and the image is constructed as you watch it, according to rules which I have devised and implemented in a computer program to produce a never-ending, never-repeating sequence of images in something which some people have termed visual music. Because the time base, what happens in time, is really important. It's not just this. It has a pace to it, and sometimes it goes very slowly, and sometimes it speeds up and so on, just like a piece of music. And of course, none of this is very strange, because if you look at, for example, if you look at a canaletto, behind a canaletto is an enormous body of knowledge and rules in geometry of perspective. Okay? And that's all constructed with all this stuff, all this perspective and all these rules and so on. And my work's just the same, it's all constructed with all those kind of rules. The only difference is I've put these rules into a computer program which enables me to make it time-based. But beyond that, it isn't just time-based, it's also interactive or being influenced by the world around us, because there is a camera. In this case, there's a camera up there. It's a tiny little white camera on the corner, you can see. And that, just there, and that is connected to the computer, and that camera is taking images from our space and analysing them in the computer to see how much movement is going on in this room. Nothing much, or maybe lots. Maybe there's a bunch of kids in here jumping all over the place, there's lots of movement, or maybe there's just 4 people being very contemplative and no movement and so on. It knows that. And the computer program is using that data to change the rules. So this program is not a static program that is always doing the same, always generating the same things. It's a changing program. The computer program itself is being changed as a result of that analysis. Over very long periods of time, over a week, a month, a year, 2 years, it's always changing. If you have the same work, if you had 2 copies of the same work in different locations, after a year they would be doing different things because they would have experienced different things. So And those rules are about what set of hues there should be, what colours, what shapes, what timings, and so on. So that's the kind of structures that are being used behind these works. The paintings, of course, are doing the same thing. They're still, there's no computer program in the painting, but the structures that generate these images are also being used to generate the paintings. The colours here are transmitted light colours. The paintings are reflected light colours. Paint on canvas. And so they're different. And I'm experimenting by painting with the colours and using what I see and observe there to change the rules in the computer program and so on. And so all of these works sort of talk to one another in my studio, and in a way I hopefully talk to one another in this exhibition. And then I just want to mention two more things, which is that there's a work in the corner near the window, which is this kind of work embodied in, this is something that I found a way of infiltrating the work into ordinary life, embodied in a computer which just plugs in the back of a television. That's why there's just a television there. So that in my own home, if we have a dinner party or some people around for drinks or something, we don't have this big black rectangle on the wall, we just plug in the artwork. And we have an artwork on the wall, and some people don't even realise it's a television, they think it's a permanent artwork. But of course you can have a different artwork on different days. So one thing is you can use the technology that's around in the home, like the television, to do that. There's another bit of technology which we all have, which is the phone. And now most of you, maybe all of you, have been upstairs, and Josh will have explained the stuff that's been going on upstairs. But just to quickly say one thing about that. The whole point about that is that the kind of technology that I'm talking about, like we're talking about here, also can exist on the internet. And the three works that you see upstairs, each of them sits on the internet, and they're talking to one another through the internet. They're in the same room, but they could be in different countries. Doesn't matter at all. And they're talking to one another. They're sharing information about the colours they're using on the internet. And so, and one of those works, one by an artist who's not here, called Sean Clark, there's a little card here, and you can use that card to put that work on your phone. Okay? And you can have one of those works on your phone, and if you have that work on your phone, it is also part of that collection of works all talking to one another. So the work you have on your phone is also talking to those other works that you see up there. And they're all influencing one another. So this is another way in which this art gets permeated into ordinary life, if you like. So hang a painting in the living room, put it on your television, get it on your phone, Josh's work on your iPad, etc. So computing and communications is central to this kind of development in art, and I think it's quite the big future that we will see. And it doesn't mean that we don't paint pictures on canvas anymore, or sculpt in bronze or anything. None of that is stopped because of this. But this is like a new direction which is influencing all of those things. And I'm happy, and Josh is happy to talk with you more about anything you wish to talk about.